Right, hello and welcome to this video where I'm going to attempt 9708 paper 3-2 of February-March 2026. Again, like the previous video, the mark scheme is not yet out, so I'm just gonna attempt this. Let me know if you don't understand anything or if there's anything you think I did wrong in the comment sections. Right, so with that, I'm gonna go directly to question 1. And this is question 1. What is the correct formula for calculating average fixed cost? So it's going to be total fixed cost divided by quantity. And this is going to be, the answer will be D. Let's go to question 2. Which statement about an indifference curve is correct? Right, so it always has a positive gradient. No, it has a negative gradient because it slopes downwards. But answer B, it can intersect with the other. No, it cannot intersect. Its gradient is determined by the marginal, so this one is true. And the higher indifference curve, the higher the indifference curve, the lower the utility gained. Consumers always prefer the highest indifference curve because more is better. Let's go to question 3. The diagram shows cost and revenue for a monopoly, curves for a monopoly firm. At what price will the firm sell it if it follows a policy of revenue maximization? So for revenue maximization, MR equals to 0. So let's go to the diagram. I'm going to make it a bit smaller. So it has to be somewhere there. So the price will be here at B. Okay, let's go to question 4. I'm going to make it bigger again. An oligopoly with a kinked demand curve. Kinked demand curve should look something like that. So this is where they need to be operating from. Decides to raise its prices. Why might it do this? It has a large increase in cost. That's true. Starts predatory pricing. Predatory pricing would mean reducing the price to chase away people. It's trying to price discriminate. No. Someone starts a price. No. So the correct answer for 4 will be A. Okay. What is it called when a consumer's marginal utility is greater than the price paid for the good? So this consumer is willing to pay more than the cost of the good, so I think that would be consumer surplus. Basically, if the MU curve looks like that, and this is the equilibrium price, for example, then this consumer is willing to pay somewhere here, and this section here would be considered consumer surplus. Right, so question 5, I'm going to choose C. Let's go to question 6. The diagram shows the private and social costs and benefits of producing a good. Which quantity is most likely to be produced by a firm operating under free market conditions? Okay, let me make it smaller so that we can see the graph. And for this, for it to be operating under free market conditions, MPB, the private cost must equal the private benefits. So let's just look for where the private benefits meets the private cost, and it's this point here, so B. I'm going to go to question 7 now. Okay, question 7. Which combination of factors would make it difficult for a cartel to fix the market price of its product? So this cartel, if there are, okay, let's look at the answers first. Proportion of firms in the industry that are members of the cartel. So if they are high, it's easier to fix. So the correct answer should be when the proportion is low. And then the barriers to entry, when they are high, it's easier for them to fix. When they are low, it will be difficult for them to fix. So the answer for 7 would be D. Let's try 8. A cafe employed 5 staff and paid them $10. So they're employing 5, paying them 10, which is $50 an hour. When extra staff were needed, the employer had to increase the hourly rate for all staff to 12. What was the marginal cost of each hour if employing 2 extra staff? So now it's 7 times 12, which is 84. Minus these 2, you get 34. And I think the answer would be C. Right, let's go to question 9. The government of a country allows each factory in the fertilizer industry to discharge 10,000 liters of liquid waste into rivers each year. Ooh. If a factory discharges less than 10,000 liters, it can sell them. This looks like a pollution permit. It can sell its remaining allowance to another factory that wants to discharge. So what does this illustrate? This is obviously a pollution permit. Okay, let's move on to question 10. What is not an example of government failure in the free provision of health care? Equal access to healthcare. This one is not a failure. This one looks like a success. Insufficient spending on vaccinations. This one is a failure. Long waiting time, failure. Storing supplies of unused medicines. This one, maybe they purchased the goods without planning. So let's go to A. All right, question 11. The diagram below shows the initial equilibrium in a labor market. D1 is the initial demand curve and S1 is the initial supply curve. The wage rate is W and Q workers are employed. All right, let's make it smaller. So this is the wage rate. That's the number of people employed. Let's look at the question. Which changes in the market will cause the largest increase in economic rent? I'm just going to write something here that probably you remember from your economics. It's called transfer earnings. And basically this is the amount of money that a worker will accept to stay in a certain occupation, and if they get high in another occupation they can leave. And this area is below the supply curve, the area for this, and this one is above the supply curve. So we want to make the economic rent the largest. We want the area above the supply curve to be the largest. And looking at this area, we need to increase this area here, the area above the supply curve. So if this supply curve shifts there, if this supply curve shifts to this, then the area increases by a bit. And that means it's going to increase more if we move to D3. So move to D3, move to S2. Shift to D3, shift to S2. So for 11, I'm going to go with C. Okay, let's go to question 12. 5 years ago, the Gini coefficient of a country was 0.35, but now it's 0.40. So I'm just going to write 0 here and 1 here. This is good, and this is not good. This is there's a lot of inequality in that country, income inequality. Which combination of is most likely to have been used in the last 5 years? So it's getting worse, so it's going towards that direction. So I'm going to look for things that are going to make this worse. Let me start with this column here. Means tested benefits in real terms. They should decrease, so it should be one of these. Sales tax should definitely increase because this is a regressive tax. It takes a bigger proportion of in tax from the income of the people who are paid lower incomes. And corporate taxes will decrease to make it so that corporates make more money. So this one is going to be B. Okay, so let's go to question 13. Okay, 13. The diagram shows the effect of introduction of a national minimum wage in an occupation where workers are employed by a profit maximizing monopsonist. Sorry. So monopsonist, sorry, what am I saying? A monopsonist is an employer, is a single employer in the market. Same way a monopoly is a single seller. So this one is a single employer of labor in the market. And so the question they want us to answer is, what happened to total wages received by the workers in the occupation? So initially, the workers were paid this wage, W1. So the area we're looking for is OW1XQ1. Let's look for that in the answers. OW1XQ1. So the answer can be that or that. OW1XQ1. And then when the government introduces the minimum wage, they're going to be paid that salary. So the area is going to increase to OWMUQ3. OWMUQ3. So I think the correct answer here will be D. Because once the minimum wage is pushed up there, there, then they start earning that salary there. Just a minute. Okay, that's good. Let's go to question 14. Investment in education and training is most likely to reduce which type of unemployment? This one will be structural, because in structural unemployment, people lose jobs because of lack of skills, and once they have skills, then we can deal with that. Let's go to 15. An estimate of the consumption function of an economy is given by an equation C equals to 1000 plus 0.8y plus C, where C equals consumption and Y equals income. So which conclusion can be drawn from this information? Right, so what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna just remind you that MPC here is usually the slope of the consumption function. So MPC is this 0.8, so it's the gradient of that function. And I'm also gonna try to calculate the APC, which will be given by this formula, consumption over income. The consumption here is 10,000 plus 0.8y divided by income, which is y. This one can be written as 10,000 over y plus 0.8. So since this average propensity to consume includes this term of 10,000 over y, which is basically the autonomous consumption, in addition to the MPC, marginal propensity to consume, the APC will always be greater. So APC will always be greater than MPC. It will always be greater because of this combination of things. You can actually try by including an income of like 100 here or 1,000, and you will see that difference there. Right, so let's look at if something closer to this is there. APC, average propensity to consume, is always constant. No, it's not always constant. In fact, APC will decline as income increases, so it's not constant. And then average propensity to consume increases as income increases. APC actually decreases, as I have said before, so it doesn't increase. Average propensity to consume is equal to marginal propensity to consume. That's not true. As I've said, APC will be greater, and so D is going to be the answer we are looking for. Okay, let's move on to 16 now. Investment is involved in both the accelerator and the multiplier. What is the nature of the investment in each case? The accelerator, this one is usually induced when there is more returns. The accelerator increases, so it can be that or that. The multiplier, because this is from the government, it's always autonomous, most likely to be autonomous expenditure. A country's velocity of circulation of money is constant. If the money supply increases by 4% and real output by 3%, what will be the approximate change in the price level? This one is, we're just going to use this formula here, change. So first, let me write MV, which you know, equals to P multiplied by Y or Q. PY or PQ. The Y here stands for output. So, well, a small change in M plus another small change in velocity should equal to a small change in price level plus a small change in output. So the small change in money supply is 4 plus small change in velocity is 0 equals to a change in price level, which we don't know, so change in P we don't know, plus a change in output, which is 3. So change, so this should be, we take 3 to the other side, 4 minus 3, it should be 1. So for question 17, our answer will be 1. I think we're moving very well, because on question 17, this is 15 minutes gone. We should be able to finish this in about 30 or 40 minutes, which we can use the remaining time, if you are in the test, to just go through the questions where you have a doubt and try to correct them. Let's look at question 18. There are different measures of money supply, from narrow money to broad money. So remember M0, M4 from your economics. Why are different measures necessary? Okay, because different countries have their national measures of money supply. I don't think so. Because of disagreement among economies over the importance of money supply. Yeah, economists may disagree about money supply, but doesn't really mean the difference is not because of the disagreement, because of the need to produce different measures of inflation, because of the need to reflect the different functions that money performs. I think the closest one here is D. All right, let's move on to question 19. The diagram below shows quarterly changes in Japan's GDP over several years. Okay, how many recessions occurred in Japan during this period? Again, a recession is because of 2 consecutive quarters. I mean, when there's negative GDP in 2 consecutive quarters. So there's a recession here, here, and here. So just confirm if this is 1 or 2 recessions. So 1, 2 quarters, that's a recession. 1, no, another, so that's 1, 2, and 3. So 3 recessions. So the correct answer here should be B for question 19. Okay, let's go to question 20. What is shown by a short-run Phillips curve? So Phillips curve is most likely to be showing a negative relationship between inflation rate and employment and unemployment rate. Okay, this relationship is negative, so the correct answer here for 20 will be B. It's negative because it's a negative sloping graph. Right, 21. What is the reason for a central bank to decrease interest rates? So decreasing interest rates, this will be to basically a major intention will be to increase money supply by making borrowing easy, or something to do with by increasing or trying to boost consumption in the economy, therefore increasing AD. So one of those two. Oh, there's something close here. To increase AD and SS in the economy. That's very close. I'm going to just check the other answers just in case. To attract hot money. No. If interest rates are low, hot money will not come. To discourage private sector borrowing. No. This one will encourage private sector borrowing. To slow the rate of increase of domestic prices. Once consumption increases, prices are going to go up. So this one is not true. So 21C will be best. Let's go to 22. A currency is devalued. Okay, so this one has something to do with the exports and imports. As soon as I see a devaluation of a currency, I know our intention is to either increase imports and make exports expensive. Increase exports and make imports expensive. Over what time period and for what type of economy is there likely to be the greatest improvement in national income? Okay, so first let me start here. Type of economy should be open, so it's going to be one of those. And for this to work, it's going to be in the long run because it needs time to work. Remember the J-curve thing in economics, or the Marshall-Lerner condition? If you remember that, then you know why we are going to go with B for 22. So let's go to 23. How might an increase in the surplus on the current account of the balance of payments affect other macroeconomic objectives in the short run? Okay, how might an increase in the surplus on the current account of the balance of payments affect other macroeconomic objectives in the short run. Right, so by decreasing economic growth, no, I think when there is a surplus, we are likely to experience an increase in AD, which is economic growth. So this one is a no. By decreasing employment is going to increase, obviously, because export industries are going to be producing more. So this one is not true. By increasing sustainable development, for this one, this is a long run thing. It's no longer short run. So the correct answer here will definitely be D for 23. All right, let's go on to 24. The diagram shows an economy in short-run equilibrium at price level P2 and output level Y2. So P2 and Y2, so this one is producing beyond the long-run aggregate supply. So this space here is going to be called an output gap. Let's go on to see what the question is asking. Which combination is most likely to be achieved in the economy at the equilibrium E2? Okay, macroeconomic aim, macroeconomic policy. Reduced current account deficit. There tends to be a lot of export at that point. A lot of imports when people's incomes, when people are employed, when employment increases, imports also tend to increase. And also the prices have increased, so we don't achieve international competitiveness, so that's a problem with that. Reduced rate of inflation, as you can see, the prices are going up, so this one is not true. And increased level of employment, so employment is increasing. Increased per capita income, this one is very possible. Increased economic growth, that's true. And reduced environmental degradation, this one may not work. So the correct answer there will be C. All right, let's move on to 25. I'm going to make it big again. What is likely to be found in a free trade area? Free trade area. So free trade area is when few countries come together to make the same regulatory policies on imports and exports and exclude any other country that's not in the free trade agreement. So import tariffs on goods entering a member country from a country outside the free trade area. So we can find that, yeah. Import tariffs on goods entering a member country from another member country. No. Quotas on goods entering a member country from another member country. No, we cannot find quotas because they remove this so that they have free trade. Subsidies on goods leaving a member country for another member country. This one probably not. So for question 25, I'm gonna select A. What is not included? 26 in the Human Development Index. For this one, infant mortality rate, probably that. GNI will be there. This one will be J. By the way, this topic, you started learning it at IGCSE all the way to A level. So you should be able to know this by now. 27. A multilateral organization that provides loans and grants to governments of low-income countries for the purpose of pursuing capital projects. Which organization does this statement describe? So it's obviously not this. This is a central bank. This is the federal bank, or the Fed in the US. This one controls banking in the US. So it's probably the World Bank or the IMF. And this one is about free trade, so this one no. Well, the IMF will be concentrating basically on policy advice, macroeconomic stability, maybe balance of payments, but not really capital projects. Because these are only capital projects, I'm going to select World Bank here. Right, let's move on to 28. During a year, a country's national income in money terms increased by 3%, prices increased by 4%. So prices have gone up by 4%, but national income has increased by 3%. So the real increase is only 1%. Okay, and the population increased by 1%. What was the approximate change in income per head? Now, I think this is -1. So we take this -1 and we subtract the population increase, so this will be -2. So the correct answer here will be a decrease of 2% for question 28. Okay, let's go to the next one. The diagram below shows a possible outcome for an economy. So this is the level of environmental degradation. It's increasing, and then it's supposed to decrease, and this is the per capita income. All right, let's look at the question. I'm going to make it smaller so that I can see the graph and the answers. What is the most likely reason why an economy is unable to turn at point X towards point Y? So it's unable to go there. It's unable to decrease degradation. A cut in direct taxes causing a substitution effect, and tax revenues continue to rise. I think this answer here for A looks like it's talking about the Laffer curve. I'm not sure about this, but maybe talking about the Laffer curve. And part B, a depreciation of the exchange rate increases the rate of economic growth. This one doesn't talk anything about pollution, so I'm not going to ignore it. Pollution continues to be caused by a rising real GDP. This one could be true. And then part D, there is now greater emphasis on living standards rather than economic growth. This one is talking about, it's actually saying we're going to be able to move, but the question is saying we are unable to move. So I'm going to go with C here. All right, let's look at the last question. It's 26 minutes. Maybe we'll go up to 27 or 28. Good timing. What is not a possible effect of using expenditure switching policies to reduce the deficit on the current account of the balance of payments? Right, let's look at the answers. A reduction in the domestic demand for locally made goods and services. So if we do expenditure switching, then domestic demand is definitely going to increase, because imports are going to become expensive, and so I'm thinking this could be the correct answer. But let's look at the others. Let's look at B. A retaliation from other countries. This is a possible effect, yes. An increase in demand pool and cost pool inflation. This is a possible effect, especially if we devalue the currency. The price of import is going to increase. That's going to cause cost push inflation, which basically is going to make production expensive. So cost push inflation there could be something true. And then the generation of government revenues through custom duties. Of course, we're going to have a tariff, for example, and so government revenue is going to be collected. So the one that I think is not a possible effect is question 30. And we're done in 28 minutes and some seconds. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You can share the video with other students, and also I'm gonna start sharing more videos on economics, as I've said, and hope to connect with you. If you have anything to say, you have a question you didn't understand, or something you think we need to discuss, please post it in the comment section. I wish you good luck in your coming exams that are coming up.